A recent study done on users of these weight loss drugs, Ozempic, Wegovy, and so on and so forth, was comparing the outcome in non-diabetic males with regard to erectile dysfunction after the commencement of the medication. Two groups were compared. They're very similar in makeup. Both were about 37 years of age. Both were about BMI 39. They had similar rates of hypertension, sleep apnea, dyslipidemia, and so on and so forth. And so these were pretty much very closely matched populations. And what they found was those that had a prescription for Ozempic were about 10 times more likely to go on to some sort of erectile dysfunction drug in the period afterwards, which is kind of surprising because you would think that losing weight, and these people on these drugs often lost weight, would be associated with an improvement in that particular condition. But in this particular situation, it actually made it worse by about a factor of 10. The incident wasn't that high. Like in the control population, about 14 out of 1,000 men in that group had prescriptions for erectile dysfunction drugs, whereas in the other population, 1.4 out of 1,000. The other population, it ended up being 14 men had to go on to require these types of drugs. So about a tenfold increase. The numbers, again, are relatively small in the absolute sense, but there is something interesting going on there. Now, this sort of is an interesting sort of follow-on question. It's something I kind of alluded to yesterday. When new drugs go on the market, there's supposed to be a period of post-market surveillance. That is, people are supposed to report side effects that might not have been picked up during the trials process. And the reality of that situation is, even though that there is a requirement for that to be available, it is by no means mandatory. In fact, it's completely voluntary. So a physician notices that somebody has a complication, which is either temporarily or otherwise associated with the onset of a new drug prescription. They have the option to report it or not. It's not mandatory. It's completely voluntary. And the number of physicians that do that is vanishingly small. In fact, most people don't even aware it exists. I didn't as a physician. There's a program called MedWatch, which is administered by the FDA, where complications are supposed to be reported. And so the reality is this post-market surveillance is kind of a joke. It doesn't really happen. It might take you 10 years of people dropping dead before you ever figure this is an actual problem. And so my sort of thought would be, certainly, we saw that during the pandemic, that absolute requirements were made for reporting, right? If you had, whatever condition, tested positive, that was 100% mandated that you reported it. It was very aggressively done. So to think that we could not say that, like, at least serious adverse events, hospitalizations, emergency room visits that occur temporarily after starting some new drug, would be a required mandated reporting event. I mean, would that be that hard? Maybe it's something we can address with the Make America Healthy Again to see if these drugs truly are safe and effective. And we really want to emphasize the safety factor there. Of course, the efficacy would be nice too. But as I've said many times, new drug comes out, hype. The drug company puts it out there. Maybe they don't share all their data. Maybe they forget to, or conveniently fail to mention some of the side effects that showed up in their data, but they don't pass it on to the peer reviewers. That does happen. Unfortunately, it's happened many times. In fact, drug companies have been convicted of fraud for that very reason, yet they're still allowed to practice. They pay some little slap on the wrist fine to keep doing that. So, if, RFK or any of you guys, Marty Macri or any of you guys that are listening, that are going to have some influence on this, maybe we could have some sort of mandatory reporting requirement for new drugs within the first few years of their release. That's basically just mandatory. Just put in there. If you go to the ER with some significant complication, or get admitted or hospitalized with some significant complication associated with the drug, maybe there should be some mandatory reporting requirements. Anyway, just a thought. What do you guys think? Are you surprised like I am that it's not mandatory? I was really surprised it wasn't, to find that out. I mean, as an orthopedic surgeon, I didn't practice a lot. I wasn't in the ER, doing drug complications. It wasn't part of my purview. So What do you guys think about the first part, erectile dysfunction, these drugs? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Maybe it's a small percentage, but you know, the relative risk goes up tenfold. Interesting why that might be. Surprising. All right, talk to you guys soon.